Yeah, so I just want to make a quick video since it's the end of the year discussing this current status of the divisions in the UFC, where we are going into next year, how this compares to where we were going into last year, and what I think is going to happen overall next year. So if you look at it's the end of 2023 right now, it's almost New Year's. So if you look at from the end of 2022 to now, the end of 2023, there are 8 divisions, right? And 5 of them have changed hands. So you got the only one staying the same being featherweight with Volk, lightweight with Islam, and welterweight with Leon. Flyweight switched from Figueiredo to Pantoja. It went from Figueiredo to Moreno and then Pantoja. Bantamweight went from Sterling to O'Malley. Middleweight went from Pereira to Strickland. Light heavyweight went from, it was vacant because at the end of 2022 it was vacant because Yuri got injured, and then it was Ankalaev versus Blachowicz for the vacant title, and it was a draw, so therefore the title stayed vacant. And now it's Pereira. Interestingly, he moved up. And last year, at the end of the year, it was Ngannou after he beat Gane. And then this year, it's Jones, technically, because he has not been stripped of his title yet. So it is still Jon Jones because he beat Gane earlier this year. And going into next year, I see a lot of holes in a lot of these people that are currently champion. And I think we see a lot of belts change hands. I'm really excited to see what happens next year. So much so that I put in my predictions, and you know, my predictions have, so obviously, as previously stated, there are 8 belts. And I said, I think that 7 men's divisions. Right? I'm talking about the women's divisions because I don't really know anything about them. My prediction is that by the end of by the end of 2024, we see 7 out of 8 divisions change hands from what they currently are. And I'm just going to get out of the way. The only thing I see staying the same is I see Islam still being the champion at lightweight. I don't see anybody even really seriously challenging him. Unless Charles gets some crazy submission, which I would love to see, or Gaethje knocking him out, which I could see happening. I think Islam is, after that Volkanovski fight, it was on short notice, I think Islam's unbeatable. I think Islam looks to be unbeatable from what we've seen. He's in the prime of his career, and I don't see anybody beating him in the lightweight division in the next year. If he wants to move up and try his shot at welterweight, he could definitely lose that. I could see Leon negating his wrestling and beating him for sure on the feet. That's going to be a totally different story, but nobody in lightweight is going to beat Islam as I see it. So let's talk about the other divisions. I just want to get that out of the way first. So the way I see it, all the other divisions change hands. Pantoja, I think that Royval was just a very easy fight for Pantoja. It was just like a stylistic dream for Pantoja, given that his wrestling is just levels and levels and levels above Royval. And I don't see Royval getting a title shot the next year, given the way he was dominated in that fight. And obviously, the person who weighed in as the backup for that fight was Brandon Moreno. Obviously, that does not mean that he gets the next title shot. Just because you weigh in does not mean you get the next title shot. Just because you weigh in as the backup, as we saw. Bilal weighed in as the backup for Leon and Colby. And still, Dana has not confirmed him to be the next title shot. But as for the flyweight division, Bilal is a totally different story than Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno, he has another fight lined up, though. You know, that fight is going to be the #1 contender fight versus Amir Albazi, I think. And I see him winning that fight pretty easily. I mean, you look at his record, he's 17-1, Albazi is, but don't forget, Um, he won a split decision with Kai Kara France, a very controversial split decision, and Moreno absolutely dominated Kai Kara France. He didn't absolutely dominate him, but he knocked him out. And I don't see. I know the MMA math doesn't always work out, but I don't see Moreno losing. I think he's hungry still and in the prime of his career. I didn't agree with the decision, Moreno against Pantoja. I think Moreno was a better fighter, and I think he won that fight. It was a crazy scorecard. It was 49-46 for Moreno, and then it was 47-48 for Pantoja. Very, very, very close split decision. I see Moreno winning, getting another title shot next year against Pantoja before the end of next year, and I see him winning that fight. I think, although Pantoja has beat Moreno twice, the first one was a long time ago, and the second one was a very controversial decision again, like I said. So I think Moreno can negate Pantoja's pace and his wrestling, beat him up on the feet, and I think you learn a lot more from your losses than you do your wins, and I think Pantoja's coasting, but I do not by any means think Pantoja's the best flyweight in the division by any means. I think he's just gotten a little bit of luck, a lot of stylistic favors, and I see Moreno taking it back. I think he's going to get one shot at it next year, and he'll get that done against Pantoja, however way he wants. So as for bantamweight, you got Sterling versus Vera set up for UFC 299. We'll see how that goes. But besides that, I think on the same card, maybe not on the same card, but you also have Cejudo versus Merab lined up. And what that looks like is the number one contender fight. Merab would have already got a title shot if he wasn't so obsessed with Sterling. Aljamain Sterling, not me. And it looks like since Sterling's moving up, he's going to get that title shot if he beats Cejudo. Merab is just a different animal. I mean, it's going to be a very interesting fight between Merab and Cejudo. I don't know how the Sterling versus Vera fight is going to shake out. I think people are sleeping on Vera. But I think O'Malley probably knocks him out, gets it done. Although Vera does have Vera's chin is questionable. I think Vera got dropped a few times in like one fight against, was it Sandhagen? No, it was Rob Font. No, he knocked Rob Font down 3 times. Never mind, I'm misremembering that. But it was like Vera has never got knocked out before. Vera has a good chin, and if there's someone who can beat O'Malley, someone with a good chin, I don't know how that's going to shake out. We'll see. Let's say for the sake of argument, O'Malley wins. It doesn't really matter, but whoever wins that fight is going to have to face the winner of Merab versus Cejudo. I think Merab versus Cejudo is a very interesting matchup, but I think that the main issue is Cejudo is just too old. If Cejudo was a lot younger, I'd take Cejudo. But because this dude was an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling, but that was 15 years ago, 16 years ago in 2024. He's older now. He couldn't negate the wrestling of Sterling, and Merab is a better wrestler than Sterling. And Merab is a good striker. It's not like Cejudo's that good of a striker, so I see Merab getting that done with relative ease against Cejudo. And regardless of who wins between O'Malley and Vera, Merab will dominate them with the wrestling. Featherweight, after that head kick knockout of Volkanovski on a quick turnaround, having to face Ilya Topuria, it's a nightmare. I think it's a nightmare for Volk. We saw the press conference. Volk was just completely silent. I think these 2 fights against Islam have humbled him a lot, and given, sure, that was in a different division, and one was on short notice. Coming off a knockout, he might go in there scared against the hungrier guy and scared of being knocked out again. I mean, we've seen many, many times great fighters take one bad loss and then their entire trajectory just completely flips. And I'm not gonna go as far as to say that Volkanovski's gonna turn into like Tony Ferguson, but I think Volkanovski is not gonna be the same fighter after that head kick knockout. That was brutal, and I think Ilya just has all the tools to get it done. I think it's a nightmare. And Volkanovski's just too willing to fight for his own good. He always wants to have a fight lined up, and I love that. I totally understand. I think I'd be the same way, but on a quick turnaround after that brutal knockout, I think what Volk needs is a long break. But I think Ilya is going to get it done against him. I really do. I really think Ilya gets this done. So Ilya will probably get a shot at it. He gets a shot at it, and he might have to defend it one time, depending on how the fight goes with Volk. If he beats Volk, depending on what fashion, he might get a rematch with Volk. Or you have, Holloway fight Ilya, or somebody else. Like maybe Yair or Josh Emmett. We'll see, though. But I think Ilya can beat Volk and then successfully defend it one time so that he goes into the end of 2024 as featherweight champion. As I said, lightweight will be Makhachev. Welterweight is interesting because Dana's comments have been very interesting about this. Bilal weighed in as the backup for Colby versus Leon, but Dana said, "Oh, I don't know about Bilal getting the next shot." Shavkat just was the first person to submit Wonderboy, and he dominated him. Shavkat has finished every fight. He hasn't lost. I know Bilal, in theory, deserves the title shot. He does deserve a title shot. I'm not going to say he doesn't. But there's someone who deserves it more. Shavkat deserves it more. I think for two reasons. For the fighting perspective and the business perspective. The UFC is a business. They want to make money. If there is a Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad title fight, nobody will watch it. Not a single person will be excited to watch that fight. I know people will watch it. I will, not that nobody will watch it. I will not care. I might just go on my phone, check like the ESPN app for the stats as it's going along, but nobody's going to care about that fight. If you put Shavkat against Leon's on an 8-year, he hasn't lost in 8 years. Shavkat hasn't lost in his life, and he hasn't even gone the distance. Then you have Leon, a guy who's notorious for going the distance. That is just about one of the most interesting fights you can make, not even just in the division, but in the UFC in general. Going into UFC 296, I was thinking, okay, if Shavkat can dominate Wonderboy the way we thought he would, he's going to get the title shot, and he did, and he's going to get the title shot. I think it's probably about, based on Dana's comments, it's probably like 70-30 Shavkat's going to get it. And I think most UFC fans would agree that that is not only the better fight, the more interesting fight, but the more exciting fight, and the one that they will pay to see. And that's the business decision that the UFC executives like Dana White are going to make, is we want to make money. Sure, Bilal, he's a good fighter, but you can't have two boring guys. Maybe you could throw one boring guy in against an exciting guy. Like if Shavkat beats Leon, you could throw Bilal in after that. Like, for example, O'Malley versus Chito Vera. Chito Vera is a very boring fighter, but O'Malley's a very exciting fighter. So you're going to buy that fight for O'Malley. If you had Chito versus Pedro Munoz, nobody cared about that fight because they're both boring. You get what I'm saying. Shavkat will most likely get the title shot against Leon next year. I think he beats Leon pretty easily because Leon hasn't really been challenged in a long time. Unless he lands some crazy head kick like he did against Usman, which lightning does not strike the same place twice. Shavkat will win the title from Leon, and let's say Bilal hypothetically gets the next title shot, I think that there's still room for Shavkat to get a title shot in 2024. Maybe like at the very end of the year, next year. I think there's a lot of pressure on Leon to be more active because he hasn't really been the most active in the world. But I think the consensus is that Shavkat gets the next title shot. Shavkat deserves a title shot in the next year. I think everyone would agree with that. So I think he gets it within the next year. If not, if Bilal gets it, he'll get it next, and he gets it. Then he beats Leon, then he beats Bilal. I think by the end of next year, Shavkat will be champion in the welterweight division. So middleweight, Strickland will not hold his title for an entire year. I love Strickland as a fighter. I love his style, but I'm sure he might beat Dricus. But Izzy versus Strickland was a stylistic just gift from the heavens for Strickland because Izzy doesn't wrestle. If Dricus just has to wrestle Strickland for 5 rounds, keep him on the ground, he will win the fight. And yeah, that's the thing. Strickland's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but Strickland got in that motorcycle accident and his knee's all effed up. He's not going to be able to wrestle. Maybe with Dricus, maybe he can beat Dricus by like a razor-thin decision or knock him out or something maybe crazy like that. But whoever wins that fight, I think you got to throw Khamzat in there against the winner. People hate on that performance against Usman, but he did win that fight because he 10-8'd him in round 1. That's a fact. And maybe Usman won both rounds. It was either a draw or a win by Khamzat. Even so, beating Kamaru Usman is very impressive enough to warrant a title shot. Showing that he's on the same level as Kamaru Usman. I think Khamzat, we all want to see him fight for the title, see if this guy's the real deal. And I think that's the way that it's trending right now. Get Khamzat in there for the winner against Strickland versus Dricus. And I think whoever he's facing, he will just, if he gets his cardio better and pays himself, he should easily win that fight. So I think Khamzat ends the year, next year as the title winner for middleweight. Light heavyweight, yeah, I'm taking too long to explain. I'm just going to keep this one short. Pereira can't wrestle. Ankalaev will beat Walker, and then Ankalaev will beat Pereira by wrestling him. Yeah. Heavyweight is the toughest one. Jones will be healthy by the end of next year. I would be shocked, though, if Aspinall does not get a chance at the title by the end of next year. If Jones is going to be out until the end of next year, he doesn't deserve the title. It's going to be interesting because I think by the end of next year, probably later, maybe in like the summer or fall next year, we get to see Jones versus Miocic. And Jones will beat Stipe. But that's the only person that Jones wants to fight. So Jones beats Stipe. He retires as the GOAT, as the heavyweight GOAT. You know, he beats the heavyweight GOAT. He feels he's the GOAT. He retires. Okay. If the person who has the belt retires, now I don't even know. I don't know if we've ever seen that before. You can let me know if we haven't, but if Jones has the belt and he retires, what happens to the belt? Does it go to the interim champion? Because Aspinall will be the interim champion at that time. So Jones has the belt, retires, does it go to the interim champ? Will Aspinall even get a fight until Stipe and John Jones fight? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. But I'd be shocked if Aspinall didn't get a shot at the title in the next year. The way he knocked out Pavlovich, he deserves the title shot. and I hope he gets one, but we'll see. I think Aspinall, though, by the end of next year, will get a title shot and will become the champion, whether that's because John Jones retires and he by default becomes a champion, or because he gets a shot at somebody for the title. Aspinall probably will end the year as the champion.